What's up, everybody? This is DH Thorne here. So one of my viewers was watching one of my latest Demon in Review videos, and there will be definitely more of those. Don't misunderstand anything I'm about to say. But they had asked me if I planned on going through the entire Ars Goetia and doing a review on each one of the spirits there. Now, there's a couple of things I want to say about that. First of all, I do not practice what I call spiritual Pokemon. My goal is not to catch them all. Rather, what I consider my work to be is a form of theurgy. I use various different spirits. I'm more attracted to the infernal spirits, the darker side of humanity and humans' interaction with the spirit world. But not even because it's dark, but because I think it's more honest. Because I feel like, you know, mankind, going back to antiquity, they may have had their favored gods, the gods that, you know, they felt were the most beneficial in their lives, but the idea of good and evil was maybe not as strict. There wasn't necessarily the good pantheon and the bad pantheon. And so I feel like a lot of people today only seem to focus on the love and light side of spirituality. Obviously, this is one of the things that we talk about in this channel. Whereas I like to balance things. I like to look at the dark side. I like to integrate the dark side. It's one of the reasons I work with Legion and the Shadow People so much. It's one of the reasons why I have this Legion's Gate project that I have started. But I'm not really interested in channeling and collecting information about all of them. This is something that some people do, and I see pros and cons in it. And I'm going to discuss that a little bit in a moment. But I call this, you know, spiritual Pokemon. This is what I call it. Because there are some people who begin this path, and they get it into their heads that they need to somehow have deep relationships with, get to know, channel, integrate, somehow work with every spirit that exists. In a manner of speaking, as a monist, as someone who's a non-dualist, as someone who believes in the singularity of being, you're already that. You're already pretty well integrated with everything. It's just your awareness that needs to be integrated. And I'm here to tell you that in your lifetime you never will. It's not possible to integrate every single aspect of what is. Otherwise you wouldn't exist. It's kind of like you can't know the entire ocean at once. You can only know it drop by drop. And that is because you are the ocean, but you've chosen to see yourself as one of the drops. So it's really difficult to try to know the ocean at once, right? You can only know it bit by bit. So you're not really going to collect every spirit in your life. And some people, they see their path as being like a channeler, and they, I guess, like, would be like John Dee and the people who maybe think they channeled, you know, the spirits from the Goetia, whatever. They document. They don't work with. So they get into spiritual sessions, maybe, you know, one night a week or maybe once a week, and they get together and they do their mediumship and they get the name, the intent, the synchronicities that they work with, and they put them all into a file or a document or a parchment or a grimoire or whatever, and they work with some of them. Maybe over their lifetime, most or all of them. You know, 72 demons and 72 whatever angels, whatever, however many spirits you can identify in the world. You can work with a lot of them intentionally over your life. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm here to tell you that it is healthier. It is better for your ascent. You get a lot more out of it if you're more selective and you make your list fluid. So what I'm saying is you make a kind of pantheon about this. You select one or two spirits to get you started, and you start working with those spirits. If that means you're starting with them because of some mundane need that you want fulfilled, so be it. I personally think that you should start with a higher intention, but that's maybe just my bias. You pick a spirit or two, and you work with them, and you focus on them for a little while. Some people say 30 days, some people say 90 days, some would say you make them your patron for life. There's all these different perspectives on this, and I agree to a strong point. But you always leave the door open for more spirits, because they're going to come. You're going to have more interests than just one or two. So I honestly, I really do feel like I'll never really get to all of them. I mean, honestly, I have a book that has 2,000 or 3,000 spiritual names in it just for the gods, and another one that has demons, and a lot of them are syncretized, so maybe there's 3,000 or 4,000 spirits that you could catalog and contact realistically with what's easily accessible in books. But that wouldn't tell you much. Also, sometimes just the name and what culture it came from. Then you got to Google it all and find out more. So it's not an easy operation, and there's no way you'd want to, and that's not even everything that there is. You know, the ancient Sumerians and the Akkadians, they had a god for everything. They had a spirit for everything. Like, I think literally everything. They're almost like the Japanese in that way with the Shinto religion, where objects have kame, and those kame can, or kami, I guess is the better pronounce. Kame is stance and kami is spirit. Kami spirits are in things, and when things become more special and old and remarkable, then it has a strong kami spirit. Like Mount Fuji is a living thing to them, the Shinto people. And very much the same way, I think the Akkadians would create spirits for everything. You know, they had spirits that would make your house stay standing. They had spirits, you know, like the Norse might have had gnomes and elves and stuff. So there's all kinds of spirits that you can work with. And I think some people have a Pokemon attitude. They feel like they've got to catch them all. They got to know them all. They got to work with everyone. They got to have a grimoire full of as many names and sigils and chants as they can find. If that is their calling in life, so be it. But I don't think the average practitioner, even the advanced practitioner, should think that way. I don't really know any advanced practitioner that really, honestly integrates each one of those spiritual lessons that each one of them brings. You know, the ones that are channeling dozens, hundreds, maybe more spirits and their sigils and stuff, I don't see much integration really. I mean, I see the chaos, but I don't see much integration. And you know, so it's not that they're not providing a valuable service and that they shouldn't be respected. It's just not my path. It's not what I would do. I'm looking for ascension in that I am trying to integrate this is what's called spiritual theurgy. I'm trying to integrate what these spirits represent in my life. Now, yes, that means I have them do things for me. That means that I see them as both internal and external identities. They're both me and they're not me. And that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of chaos, potentially, and a lot of power running through you at one time. And you can burn yourself out for sure. You can absolutely burn out your energy body. You can burn out your mind. You can burn out your interests, you know, very easily. Even with just one spirit, you can get sick of it. You can go, oh, you know, I'm really sick of the energy this spirit's constantly bringing me. I'm really tired of the chaos that Belial throws in my life. I'm really tired of the authority ball keeps throwing on me. You know, I'm really tired of some of these things. So what do we do? Well, like I said, select one or two to start with. Work through spirits slowly. I personally suggest that, you know, if you're going to go with the left-hand path goetic route, Lucifer and the Nine Kings is a great place to start. That's 10 spirits that will cover most of the needs that you will have in your life for now. And you will find that all of the other spirits are of lesser, not quality by any stretch, but they are of lesser, you know, more narrow focus perhaps, or more specific. And a lot of them fall under the categories that the other spirits do. There's a lot of overlap, right? So I say find your spiritual tribe. You know, respect all the spirits, but keep your pantheon of personal spirits kind of small and keep them in flux. Don't make them stay the same. You know, you might start off with Lucifer, and then over time you might switch to some other spirit as the one that you focus on. As you grow, allow your pantheon to change, because they're going to come in and out of your life. They're not going to stay with you forever, I promise. Not in the way that you think. You know, like I don't talk to King Paimon half as much as I used to. Like we're not done, but it's like he shows up, gives me a couple of bits of gnosis, and walks away. It's not like it was. We don't have a daily communion. We don't, you know, communion. We don't do big conversations anymore. It's like I'm sure he'll come back when I need him, but it's not. We're not that close right now. Neither is Zagan with me lately, or King Person came for a while. We had a wild ride, and that was it. King Balaam is sticking around. You know, Vinay is sticking around for sure. So there's different spirits that are really active in my life, and then there's ones that aren't, and I just focus on the ones that I need to focus on for now. So maybe even an advanced practitioner in 5 years might work with 4 or 5, 10 spirits most. They might not work with that many, or maybe they will work with 20 or 30, but they're not going to try to work with that many. They're gonna work on what they need to work on, and that's much more important, way more important. I'd rather have 4 good intimate relationships with powerful spirits and people than 100 with people that I don't have much relationship to. This is why in real life I keep my circle pretty small. I don't make a lot of real friends. I have a lot of people that I consider friendly, and they're friends like in the acquaintance sense. I talked about this in a post I put up on YouTube where I said my circle is tiny, but I'm in the middle of a crowd, and if I'm going to be alone, I might as well be in an audience, right? I might as well have an audience. So yeah, I have a lot of people following me and talking to me, but I have a very small personal tribe, very small. And I keep it that way. I'd rather have good intimate relationships with people. And the same thing applies to spirits, in all honesty. So there is some advantage though. Sort of like, there's cons to it, to working with too many, but there's also a couple of pros that I'll talk about in a second. So a large personal collection of spirits will make it so that the more you learn of them, the more you experience them, the more you talk to multiple spirits, the more you're going to start syncretizing them. Now, syncretizing means you see the similarities and you realize they might be the same, or they are the same spiritual force that has appeared to multiple cultures over multiple years. You might have, Zeus and Jupiter. You might have Marduk and Zeus, right? You might have Thor. You might have just so many different iterations of that same conceptual energy that has changed and shifted and become some other cultural metaphor, some other personification for someone else. That personification is not the spirit. That is just the personification of the spirit. We personify these spirits as individual beings, but you begin to see when you work with more and more of them, or study more and more of them, research more and more of them, talk to them. Yes, they will all have a different conscious self. They'll all appear different to you, but you'll begin to get this feeling that there's a syncretization going on, that there is a comparative mythology to them, that they share stories, they share cultures, or share influences, they share archetypes. So this is going to teach you one of two things. One, all spirits descend, and I'm reading this from a response I made to a viewer, by the way. All spirits descend from archetypal metaphysical truths. And this means that, like Lucifer is a mask for the archetype of the cosmic rebel, the enlightened master, the ascended master, the person who, or being, whatever you want to call it, the spiritual being that escaped from imprisonment, escaped from the paradigm of the right-hand path of servitude, and recognized that they are divine and have a right to be a god of their own, and not be subservient to some so-called creator or originator concept, that they are their own thing, because they are the source. They knew it, they figured it out. And so any spirit that tries to tell you you're not the source, they walk away from. Well, that Luciferian spirit has manifested in many cultures as many different spiritual beings. And people don't like to hear that, because it kind of takes a dump on their theistic spirituality. And I'm not a theist. I am closer to a pantheist or an atheist. I'm sort of in between the two, because I don't believe in gods in the sense, I'll use the term because it's the easiest term to use, but I don't believe in gods that created the world and all this kind of religious, superstitious mumbo jumbo. I believe in a metaphysical approach to reality, where I see the universe as a singularity, and we are just fractures of that. We are just conceptualizations within that, and we think we're individuals, and we find out as we move through this that we are more than that and less at the same time. We're all individual aspects of this same thing. And this is not right-hand path, because you're not joining with anything. You're recognizing within your own reflection, you are the divinity that you are, and that anything that claims it's over you is next to you, it's beside you. How could it be above you? So you rebel against it and say, no, I'm entitled to my own universe of godlike power. That is what I'm entitled to as my own identified being. You're entitled to that. So as you work through these spirits, you may see that these spirits, you know, you have Lucifer, who could be conflated. Some people say Loki, you know, Loki, Logar. You have Enki and Ea. You have Venus and Horus, and all of these, you know, Phosphorus and all this that people syncretize as being the same idea. They all bring light, and they all bring illumination and enlightenment, individuality. They are all kind of tricksters. They guide mankind towards individuality and stuff. Okay, so they represent that archetype. So they're aspects of that jewel. They're facets. Like this nice beautiful piece of citrine here, it's got all these facets. They're part of the same jewel, and you're just looking at a different facet each time you work with a different spirit, but it's the same energy. It's the same source. Okay? And when you see it that way, I think that you have a much more enlightened approach to working with spirits. You're no longer at the mercy of some dogma. You now understand dogma as a tool instead of as something that you have to bow down and worship. So the other thing you may find, and this is the other end of the spectrum, and it kind of ends up being the same lesson, but I think it's the wrong way to look at it. You will find, if you don't see it that way, you will decide that there is a hierarchy of spirits. And this is what the people of the ancient times did. You know, they would invoke, integrate, channel, find out about different spirits, and they go, wow, all 5 of these have the exact same general influences. They all do this. This one is, you know, they're all about storms or something, right? One controls the weather, one controls the clouds, one controls the rain. So what they'll do is they would go through, and however they decided it, whether they channeled it, felt it, intellectually thought about it, they decided there was a hierarchy to these spirits, and they decided that this is a king, this is a prince, this is a lesser being. And almost every culture's done this. You know, you have your elder gods that spawned the younger gods. They got into conflict. Then the younger gods took over, became the new gods, the new kings of the world, basically. And then their children are lesser beings from there. And in some cultures, like the Norse culture, the idea was that humanity is descendants of those high gods, and we are somewhere in their lineage. So there's this hierarchy. Now, this hierarchy, the problem with that, in my opinion, and you can live your life how you want, but my opinion is this hierarchy creates this illusion of worship, of superstition, of unrealistic, unreasonable expectations, of a desire and demand for things to be Hollywood-style magic, and it can drive you insane. I honestly think that this is and when I say insane, I don't just mean like, oh, you're in a different world, and maybe that's all it is. Maybe you are just in a different world. But I think it pushes you back down the ladder of ascension. I think that by doing so, you are putting your divinity outside yourself. You are not recognizing that those beings are part of you, and that you're part of them, because it's a two-way street, you know. You are seeing them as external beings only, meant to be worshipped, and there's a hierarchy, and therefore you are below them somehow. Because if it is possible for there to be a hierarchy, for there to be a king, god, and a prince, and so on, well, it's a much bigger leap of logic to accept that you're equal to those gods. It's much more difficult when you think of it that way. And when you think of it more from the perspective that they are part of you and you're part of them, there is no conflict when you come before them in an assertive or at least self-assured way. You're not bossing them, you are working with them. There was a movie, what was it called? Had John Travolta. I can't think of the name of the movie off the top of my head. If I find it, well, maybe somebody figure it out. But he gets like psychic powers. He looks up in the sky and he sees a bright flash and he gets psychic powers. And there's a scene where he's in front of a psychiatrist who's evaluating him because everybody thinks he's crazy now because he's got this stuff, and he decides to prove to him. And I think my wife probably just came through with the name of that, but I got to look up my phone. Sorry for the interruption. I think my wife's hearing me and talking about it. I'll bet you that's what that is. You want to just tell me, honey? Phenomenon. Thank you. It's Phenomenon. All right, so the movie was Phenomenon with John Travolta. And so he's sitting there, and the psychiatrist is whatever, I think it's a psychiatrist, if I remember correctly, evaluating him. And he's playing with a pencil, and then after a few minutes, he's clearly using telekinesis to make the pencil move. At least in the movie sense. And the guy is like, how are you doing that? Like, how are you making that happen? Something like that. And he's like, well, I'm not. I'm not really making it do anything. I'm asking it. We're cooperating, basically. This is such a deep spiritual lesson. Whoever made that movie knew something. Because that's exactly what's going on here. This is why I tell you that your magic needs to be in alignment between yourself and the universe. You have to recognize that you are that. Tat Vamasi, you are that. And you need to make it work for you by being integrated with it. It's part of why I'm doing the Legion's Gate working. A lot of people are pushing back on it because they don't get it. They think that somehow I'm trying to be a fucking hero and change the world. Yeah, whatever, fuck them. They don't need to help out. But my point is, with these spirits, if you put them in a hierarchical manner, you see them as this supernatural story, this mythological thing. That is a beautiful story. It is how the ancients kept their beliefs intact before they could really understand how to write things down. It is also an easier way to reach into the mind of the ignorant. It is much easier to inspire people to think about gods on this level, inspire them into their lives, and then teach them lessons using those puppets, basically, than it is to show a person fresh out of the womb. Well, maybe it would be easier then. Maybe a person fresh out of real life, that these spiritual beings are something even more than what the ancients thought they were. And by the ancients, I don't mean the priests or the ones who really knew everything. I'm talking about the ones who walked around worshiping everything, you know. So, no, I don't believe that the proper goal with this work is to catch them all. I'm not saying you can't work with a lot of them, and I'm not saying you won't encounter them all. I've done ritual where I have given offering, I've given respect, I've paid homage to each of the 72 of the Goetia, plus or minus, because obviously the Goetia is just there's some versions where there's 74 and whatever, there's different numbers. So whichever number you like, you can go through the entire pantheon. You can go through the entire pantheon of the world if you have the energy for it. Go buy a book of gods and demons and just go each page, just make an offering to each one. Take you about a year. If you did a bunch a day, you could probably do it in a year. I don't think you could do the whole thing unless you did it all at once in some kind of clumsy group egregore. So you don't gotta catch them all. You're not supposed to catch them all. That's not the point. The point is to find out your own divinity and to have these beings help you by working on the things in your life and in your own experience that you really need. And by need, I don't mean you have to see yourself as flawed or that you're gaining something. What I mean is, well, for me, I see it more as wiping away delusion. And there's still plenty of delusion in my eyes, guys. It's just not the same as most people's, because I've had that moment of Satori. I've had that moment of awareness. I had that moment of Zen, of ego disillusionment, which isn't, I'm not the Buddha, but I am, right? I mean, that's the story. You are the Buddha. But I am not that person who has completely identified nirvana. I haven't had the full out-breath of total, I have total acceptance, but I have not quite totally relinquished my ego. I don't plan on it. It's not my intention. I know that, because if it was, it would just happen. I know that my purpose is to enjoy this experience. This is blissful to my higher self. So what am I doing by working with spirits? I'm making the illusion this much more exciting and fun, this much more inspiring to me to learn and grow, and I'm trying to find a way to have the best universe for myself. And I'll do a video about that probably soon. I'm thinking about doing a video on the idea that you have to remember, when you're doing magic, you're not changing the world for everybody else, you're changing it for yourself. So maybe I'll do that video. If not, keep requesting it and I'll get around to it. Until next time, guys, this is DH Thorne. Mind the shadows. Support my work if you want. Like, share, and subscribe. Go to the comments. Buy my crap. All of that helps me out. Do whatever you want to do. In the meantime, mind the shadows.